New geometry or concrete art implies a visual image consisting only of geometric forms. These forms are completely free of any symbolic meaning. In the early 20th of the last century, we can notice appearance of rational movements, neoplasticism, constructivism, suprematism, the school of Ulm. By the 50s, vector of progress changed to non-figurative geometrical art as the past aesthetic became inordinately narrow and inadvertently colonialist in its outlook. It bound itself to strict rules of composition, which were too necessary for rationalism and were connected to the pre-war achievements of European artists. Now concrete art, depending on the task, combines both features of intuitive, phenomenological interaction with materials, space, and functional rationalism. The extension of constructivist principles into the field of moving objects gave rise to kinetic art in offline and op art in motion design. The neo-geo style emerged in American art in the early 1980s and is often seen as a continuation of the tradition of pop art. Neo-geo is postmodernist abstraction, abandoning the utopian ambitions of Kandinsky and Mondrian. Neo-geo combines the aesthetics of earlier abstract art forms like pop art, op art, and minimalism, with concept derived from continental philosophy. Neo-geo's founder and theorist Peter Halley thinks of his own paintings as schemes and diagrams of contemporary society, squares and rectangles as all kinds of cells of society, lines as social connections and communication networks. Memphis. The Memphis group from Italy is famous for its unique pieces of furniture, ceramics, fabrics, patterns, and other products of distinctly postmodern design. It combines stylistic features of 1950s kitsch, Art Deco geometry, and pop art. It uses bold and bright neon hues, primary and pastel colors, geometric shapes, and quirky, repetitive patterns. It is standard practice to create a vector pattern of repetitive shapes such as triangles, circles, and wavy lines, which gives any background a Memphis flavor. Fonts should complement the overall geometric pattern. The lettering should combine smooth curves and sharp angles. Chaotic character sets Memphis apart from other design trends. Hence, the complete freedom in the color scheme, location, and combination of elements. The more contrast, the better. Oh Hey magazine concept by Australian illustrator and designer Shanti Sparrow.
BMW i3 and BMW i8 Memphis concept.
In the opening credits to the 1986 black comedy Ruthless People, the designer takes a cue from the postmodern style of the Memphis group, whose furniture, fabrics, ceramics, and glass and metal objects were in vogue in the 1980s and feature heavily in the film itself. De-stijl, or De-stijl, is a creative association of artists formed in the Netherlands in 1917. The members of the association were the creators of a new current in art, neoplasticism. It had a significant impact on the development of Western European and American modernism in architecture, design, and abstract painting in the first half of the 20th century. There is a restriction on the use of palettes in De-stijl: blue, red, yellow, black, white, and only. Another style of early experimentation with geometry is the boho. The concept of boho, like De-stijl, is harmony. This is characteristic of all works of art from painting to architecture. It is the creation of a universal identity in space, harmonizing the whole society. The overriding functionality of the style didn't negate the aesthetics of the form, but rather gave it more meaning. The followers of the boho abandoned meaningless design elements and decided to make the most, experimenting with form, location, and contrast. In this way, the visual appeal and strategic need for detail create a contradictory brand look. We see an outwardly simple look with a powerful internal idea. Another key principle of this style is minimalism. It makes it possible to concentrate on the most important. In 1930, the design of texts in Germany was strictly regulated by the laws of conservative typography. Therefore, representatives of boho had to experiment not with the fonts themselves, but with their arrangement. They could place the text vertically or around an image, just as in modern, familiar to us magazine text, but always in such a way that it became an integral part of the composition. The fonts used were strictly geometric and had no decorative serifs. Long, familiar and simple geometry is an accessible way to explain the essence of even the most complex things. Representatives of the boho symbolically limit themselves to only 3 main colors from the palette, from which all the others are derived. These are red, blue, yellow, plus achromatic black and white. Interesting effects are created by combining shades of the main colors and their contrasts. Modern graphics can include several complementary colors in their design, but this is not traditional for the boho. Optical art, or op art, is an artistic movement of the second half of the 20th century, which uses a variety of optical illusions based on the peculiarities of perception of flat and spatial figures. Op art typically operates abstract patterns composed with a stark contrast of foreground and background, often in black and white for maximum contrast, to produce effects that confuse and excite the eye. Op direction goes hand in hand with kinetic art. Op artists are attracted to virtual movement. Kinetic artists are attracted to the possibility of real movement. The op art movement was initiated by artists who were interested in exploring different perceptual effects. The main elements are the moire pattern, an afterimage, and the dazzling effect. Moire pattern is a pattern that occurs when 2 periodic grid patterns overlap. The phenomenon is due to the fact that the repeating elements of the 2 patterns follow a slightly different frequency and overlap each other, then form gaps, and so on. An afterimage is an image that continues to appear in the eyes after a period of exposure to the original image.
Titles for Gaspar's Noé Enter the Void.
Title designer Howard Norman proposed a sequence inspired by the infamous Rorschach ink blot test. His concept, designed to take the audience on a visually stimulating trip into the male psyche, convinced Khan.
Several videos more in this style.